What's up, everybody? Welcome to the new edition of Touchdown Texas. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, and my co-host here, Nick Rodriguez. A lot going on the 40 acres. But Nick, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man. Get it every day. We get a little closer to college football Saturday, so I'm pumped and I'm ready to talk some football today.
Definitely. So spring practice is progressing very well. We're almost to the end of the spring practice. They're going to have a fan event. UT is Saturday, April 26th. No spring game again, but there's some notes that we want to talk about for spring practice. Also, there's been a lot of controversy around the Tennessee quarterback as he's been in the
Yeah.
news lately. So we're going to react to that. We had some lists of some top 10 quarterbacks. We're going to get our thoughts about that. And Texas landed a portal commit from Stanford. So we're going to hear
Yes.
our reaction to that. Before we do that, I wanted to say, be sure to follow us at touchdown_Texas on our social media channels, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support. But let's start with the Tennessee quarterback. So Nico, there was a lot of controversy because apparently he did not show up to spring practice, their spring practice Friday morning. He skipped all meetings. He completely ghosted Tennessee, and it was due to NIL contract negotiation. So what are your thoughts about this? Because it's a big story.
I mean, this is huge. This is the first time this has happened in the college level. Usually you hear about a player holding out. You know, he wanted more money from NIL deals. He was getting about 2 million. He wanted upwards about 4 million from Tennessee. Tennessee eventually said, no, we're not going to pay you. Even though he had good production last year, I don't think it was enough to warrant $2 more million. And Tennessee, good for Tennessee, because this is a precedent and that's going to continue to happen. And unless colleges and coaches go, no, 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 you're not running the show. As Coach Heupel of Tennessee said, I'm not bigger than the program either, so you got to put yourself first. And he's now looking for a school, it's kind of a weird situation, but this is definitely not going to be the first of these things. Something's got to be straightened out with NIL to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen, because this is more something you would see in the NFL where a player is holding out for more money or another contract. But these guys are still amateurs. They're not professionals, even though they are getting paid. So very, very interesting.
Definitely. Nico's caught a lot of criticism. Everybody is happy for Tennessee because
Yes.
there's been needed to be guardrails. NCAA
Yes.
basically washed their hands because they kept getting sued by the different courts across the country. And they're like, okay, we want no part of this. And they just opened up Pandora's box. So now situations like this have been happening. So Nick said it perfectly. He was making 2.1 million, but then he wanted 4 million. And Tennessee, I think, would have continued to negotiate with him, but they didn't like the fact that he completely skipped out of practice on Friday, and then they didn't hear from him the rest of the day, and they had no choice but to leave, to go in another direction. And this was really surprising because there was even some reports by Josh Pate, who me and Nick both listened to and both like, that said Nico was even thinking about opting out for the Tennessee playoff game last year against Ohio State because he
That's
saved.
ridiculous.
Exactly. These same situations were happening. Well, I guess either they convinced him to play or he bit his lip throughout the spring, and now these negotiations are happening. And Nico's been a good quarterback. He was only a redshirt freshman last year. He showed a lot of flashes, but he really struggled with accuracy, especially against high caliber SEC teams. And his best game was against Vanderbilt, throwing 4 touchdowns, but there was just too much inconsistency from Nico, and he needed to perfect his throwing mechanics. So I don't think they thought he was worth that. And this really alienated himself with him and his teammates, because now he's asking for all this, and it's just a bad look, for him and his representation. But what do you think about this? Where do you think Nico goes from here? And are you hearing any schools that may be interested in him?
Well, just to hit on the representation part, I just think someone, whether his dad, his agents, or whoever it was that was in his ear, just gave the wrong information to him. I mean, this is going to happen at some point where like any job, right? Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I'd like some more money. That happens everywhere. Just the way you went about it, like you said, like I think Tennessee would have kept negotiating, but you ghosted them. You didn't go. It's just not the way to handle your business. And now you're kind of playing with your hand tied behind your back, right? It's the spring. A lot of rosters are close to set. especially the
Exactly.
quarterback position. And the way the SEC is, they have a rule where in the spring window, he cannot transfer within the SEC, right? If he had done this more in the winter, I believe like January when that first transfer window opens up, he could have gone to a Georgia or a Vandy or, whatever. But that is over. So as far as options, you and I were talking about it before. He's from the West Coast, so I think somewhere out West Coast makes a lot of sense. I heard North Carolina is out. I heard Tulane is kind of in the mix, even though they're not West Coast. But I'm going to throw out Colorado. I know this is kind of actually yours that you said Colorado. I haven't heard anything definitive on Colorado, but they just seem like a school that would be like, you know what, let's do it. They're all about the shine. They're all about the flexing and stuff. And I could just see Prime being the guy to be like, hey, you know what, we'll give Nico a call. Maybe we'll give him, maybe not 4, maybe we'll give him 3 million. But I don't know. It's so interesting. If he ends up at a Tulane, that's got to hurt your draft stock. That's got to hurt a lot of things. I don't want to bash the kid too much. I just think he had very poor people in his ear. Just he's 20 telling him the wrong thing, and it's unfortunate, really.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to bash the kid because all the reports coming from Tennessee, they said Nico was a great teammate. He's a soft-spoken guy. He's not a me type of guy, but the wrong people got in his ear that make him portrayed like that, which I know. And they say his personality is not like that at all. Coach Heupel even thanked him, and his teammates were even like, they were sad to see him go because he's one of those guys. He's a great guy to hang around, and he's a good locker room guy. But we're talking about options. So Tulane was in the running, but I saw a report this afternoon that said now they're out.
Oh, wow.
North Carolina's out. Colorado's not crazy. Yes, they got the 5-star freshman from Georgia, Carrollton, Georgia, but he reclassified. He was originally class of 2026, so technically he should be a senior in high school. And Nico seems like the kind of guy that he was only going to spend 3 years in college, so he was only going to spend 1 more year in college. So take a flyer on him for a year. Or if that doesn't work out, maybe UCLA, USC, maybe University of Washington. Maybe we'll see. But there's also the last thing about that is there's also chatter out there that these teams are not going to want to pay in the $4 million, obviously. But now the number that's being thrown around by Pete Narcos of On3 is that teams are only going to be paying him $1 million. So he's going to be even taking less than he would have taken at Tennessee. And Nico's dad went after Pete Narcos, the On3 guy, saying, he completely went off of him because he's the one that came up with this report. So he might even be taking less next year, and NFL teams are going to really question him. So how do you think this affects his future in the NFL?
It just depends on how these next few months play out. I mean, anybody can turn things around. We've seen crazier things happen, but this is not a good look. I mean, someone was going to be the guinea pig in this situation, whether it was a star running back or quarterback, and test the contract negotiation. And that's what you and I have been talking about. But to me, and this is what you mentioned when you first opened with this segment, is he hadn't flexed enough to warrant that kind of contract. Not that Quinn did, no one has done this, but if Quinn would have done this, it might have been a little easier to swallow. Big 12 champion, took us all the way. Like if he's coming back this year, man, he took us to within a play of the national championship game 2 years in a row. Okay, there's an argument there. If I'm Will Johnson of Michigan, quarterback, again, he's coming back. Okay, damn. All right, if anybody, Travis Hunter maybe is the guy.
Exactly.
Or somebody like that who's got a little bit more cachet, who's done it more than once. Travis Hunter won the Heisman. Look, I looked up his numbers. He was 19-5. He was pretty good. I mean, he was really good, but 1 year. I mean, it wasn't enough to be like, wow, like. And Paul Feinbaum, even mentioned like a lot of people in the SEC, coaches and otherwise, think he's more middle of the pack.
Yep.
Instead of like leading the way. A lot of people would have Lagway or Arch. Even Sellers sometimes ahead of Nico. So it's unfortunate. He could turn it around. If he goes to a school and balls out, no one's going to care at all. They won't, but it is still something of like, well, where's he going to play? And this has been a thing for like 2 weeks out of the blue. Very weird.
And then also big question for NFL teams have to think about as well, is his head in just about how much money he can make, or is his head really into football? Because
Right,
he had
right,
19 touchdowns, but 11 of those touchdowns came against weaker teams. Like he was
right.
terrible at the SEC. That Alabama game, they won that game, but me and you could agree, Nick,
Not
they did
because of
not.
him.
Not because of
It's
him.
a
Thank you.
Samson, Dylan Sampson.
The running back. You took the words right out of my
Yeah.
mouth. Thank you. And he, he can still improve. He has a lot of upside. This is a high upside player. He's 6'6". He has a volleyball background. He's super athletic. But let's just see what's going to happen. This is a story we definitely going to keep track of because it kind of shocked the college football world, and we'll see what's going to happen. But also, I wanted to throw this graphic on there because this is a very interesting stat. So out of all the quarterbacks that On3 ranked in the top 5 of the 2023 high school recruiting class, Arch Manning is the only quarterback that has stayed at his school. Dante Moore went from UCLA, now he's at Oregon. Nico, of course, he's still fighting his school. Jackson Arnold is now at Auburn. And then Malachi Nelson, who was a lot of services, including ESPN, ranked the #1 player in the country. Nick, he went from USC to Boise State. Now he's at UTEP in El Paso. What does this say about Arch Manning?
Oh, this is a lot about Arch. I mean, a lot of those guys, like I still think Jackson Arnold is a baller and he's going to be really good at Auburn. I just think the situation itself at Oklahoma wasn't great. So it's not like just because you transferred doesn't mean you can't play. It just means the situation wasn't a good fit. But man, for a guy that knew he wasn't going to play for 2 years, just handled everything perfectly. Same with Quinn Ewers, handled it perfectly, even though I'm sure it was not easy. Being in Austin, you hear all the little chatter, sure, any moment. And that's credit to Arch Manning as well. He waited his turn. There's reports. He always gets asked, "Oh, are you going to leave? Are you going to transfer?" He goes, "No, I'm happy." Of course, he comes from a lot of money, but he's making a lot of money himself in NIL. But like you said, with the Nico focusing on the money, Arch is very fortunate. He has a lot of money from his family, and he's made himself a lot of money already. But this kid loves football, and I think he loves Sark, and I think he loves being in Austin, and I think he loves being the guy in Austin. And it's clearly because he's been able to stay and wait it out, and now he can be the guy and reap the rewards of being a little patient.
Definitely. And this is not an indictment on the other quarterbacks. These other quarterbacks are very talented. Dante Moore had got thrown into UCLA as a freshman under this last year at Chip Kelly, and he struggled a little bit so that he transferred to Oregon. He sat out last year with Dylan Gabriel getting the reins. Let's see if he's going to start this year at Oregon. Jackson Arnold, I think he's going to do great things at Auburn. Auburn needs a quarterback. They had the team around they had a good offense around, like the offensive players, but they need a quarterback. So I think this is a testament to Arch Manning's loyalty, his commitment to perfecting his craft, and his love for the University of Texas. And he said, good things happen to people that wait. Well, let's see. The Arch Manning show is now officially going to get started, and it's only going to get crazier as we get closer to the season. Well, speaking of the Texas Longhorns football team, we got a portal commit yesterday. Stanford wide receiver Emmett Mosley. He's 6'2". He's 190. He played as a true freshman last year at Stanford. So what are your thoughts about this, and do you think he'll be a good fit at Texas this year?
I think he's a great fit. 6'2", 190. He's got great speed. His dad was a running back at Notre Dame. His mom was a soccer player at Notre Dame. So he's got the speed. He's got the agility already kind of built in from his parents. This is a kid that played at Stanford. He had 6 touchdowns and 525 yards, averaging 10.9 yards a reception. That means this kid is picking up first downs basically every time he catches the damn ball. So this guy is, and then you keep that in mind with Stanford not having the best year last year in terms of quarterback play, in terms of just overall scheme. He will fit very well here with Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore. I think he's going to be an awesome piece. Let me just read you not all of his receiving numbers, but this is from October to November, his yardage. Wake Forest, 4 catches, 40 yards. Okay. Next week, NC State, 3 catches, 44 yards. Louisville, they were ranked 19th. A win, 13 catches and 168 yards. Longest catch was 62 yards. 2 weeks later, San Jose State, and I know it's San Jose State. It wasn't a loss, but 7 catches and 101 yards. This dude can clearly catch the ball in bunches. Sark is going to love giving them the ball. I think it's a great fit. I think it's good for him. I think he'll be a good security blanket for Arch. Love it. Love it for the kid, too. I mean, this is no disrespect to Stanford at all, but they're just at a different part in their program than Texas, and he probably just wants a little bit more consistency overall, and I think it's going to be great for all sides.
I'm hyped for this. So he's coming in as a young player, which I was surprised because Sark, they said in the portal, likes to find players that have experience and stats.
Right.
So when I read that he was a true freshman last year, I'm like, oh wow, Sark must really like his upside. He's going to be in the program for a minimum 2 years, maybe even more.
Exactly.
And so he was on the Stanford team. They fired their head coach last year. They're not known for offense. Stanford is a run first team that struggles just to even throw the ball sometimes, or even when they throw the ball just to find a first down. Well, this guy, so Stanford is going to have a wide receiver that's going to be drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. He has a last name that's a little hard to say, but he fed off him very well. He made contested catches. He has good ball skills. He can get off press coverage, which is very hard for a true freshman. He can run, and Stark thinks of him as a deep threat, even though he did not get to show it last year at Stanford because, like I said, they're a run-first team. So he has the upside. And I think once he gets more targets, he's going to be really, really tough a really big problem for the defense. I project him, he's going to be on the opposite side of Wingo. So we know Moore is going to start in the slot. Wingo is going to start on one boundary. I think this kid, Emmett Mosley and Parker Livingstone, are going to fight it out to whoever starts on the other boundary. Even though he's going to be in the circle of trust, the 4 names I just mentioned are going to be in Stark's circle of trust.
Yes,
it's just going to be like, who can get more, who's going to have more touches, and who's going to be on the field for the same. Because him and Parker Livingstone are in the same class, Nick. They're both technically sophomore, second-year players. So even though Parker Livingstone kind of has his eyebrows raised, he's like, okay, I got some competition. I've been tearing it up, but I got some competition. And it's going to be really, really exciting to see, this kid in Sark's offense. And who wouldn't want to come to Texas as a portal wide receiver? You had Adonai Mitchell, who was a beast. And it was amazing to see his growth. Matthew Golden, he had an awesome year. Isaiah Bond is still going to get drafted, even though he did not have the year that he wanted to. So, talk about Nick, Texas's attraction as a portal wide receiver.
I mean, it's like you said, it's huge. Not only do you have the scheme with Sarkisian, but you also have the quarterback play. And you have the history with it. He's done it at Alabama. Devontae Smith was one of the best receivers in the NFL, won the Heisman. So, I mean, Sark has such a history with it. And now you have Arch. Matthew Golden came from Houston. Isaiah Bond came from Alabama. So it's big programs, it's small programs. He's getting it from everywhere. And now you're seeing, like you said before, he's usually leaned on the veteran receiver to transfer in who's got a year left or maybe 2 years left. But now he's going after a young guy. And he goes, you know what? I think I got some room to play with here, and we're going to have a very young wide receiving core. But I think it's so talented that it's going to be really deep by the end of next year and hopefully by the end of this year too, just because they're going to have to play. And, you already know Wingo and DeAndre Moore already played a lot of football already, so they're going to be ready to go. Parker Livingston, I think you're right. Him dueling it out with Mosley, I think it's going to be awesome. They're both going to get playing time, probably both going to have to play a lot while we figure out the tight end situation. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think everyone should learn his name. And It's going to be exciting times.
And this is
sure.
good for the wide receiver room because I don't want to discount
Yes.
Parker Livingstone tearing it up this spring, but who's his competition? We go in more, we're out. Like his competition is the freshman wide receiver.
Right.
Exactly. So this is going to light a fire under him and saying like, okay, I have competition now, and it's going to bring out the best freshman wide receivers. I still expect Dalen McCutcheon, who's going to play most likely after Moore because he's a slot wide receiver, and JB French, who Nick has been really high on since we signed him. He's going to get a lot of runs. So our receiver room is filling out. But last question on this subject. It's a little tough to tell, but I just want to get your thoughts. Do you see Sark going after another wide receiver just to completely shore up this group?
Maybe. I mean, all that depends on how healthy he thinks everybody is. And by all accounts, everyone seems to be a little healthy, nicked up here and there, but no one that serious. And then how much does he trust the freshmen? Because at some point, the freshmen are going to play. Someone is going to get hurt. Hopefully, it's not too major. So does he trust someone like French to step in week 7 against Florida, let's say? Maybe. Probably. And just because he picked someone else up doesn't mean he doesn't also trust that player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they pick somebody up just because we are so young and the kid that he picked up is also young. But that might be just what's out there right now. So it's an interesting time in the spring where you're starting to rev up into the summer and you kind of know who your guys are. And, okay, this is my starting 3 or 4. And you start to lock in some of those positions and things. So I think he will if he has the opportunity to, just because we are so young. And that player will most likely be someone who's a graduate, someone a little bit older. But then again, I don't know. It's all up to Sark and what he feels like he can get the best out of these guys.
I definitely agree. I wouldn't be surprised if he picks one up, but also wouldn't be surprised that this is the wide receiver group that he rolls with this season.
It's gonna be
really good.
I mean,
and this is another. Remember this, Mosley. He had a good freshman year, but in my opinion, he was underutilized at Stanford. Who was the last underutilized guy? Matthew Golden from Houston, and he's going to be a top 15 pick. Just want to throw that out there, Longhorns fans. Let that marinate.
Right.
Definitely more conversations we're going to be having on this Texas wide receiver group. Well, now let's get to an interesting quarterback ranking. This is from Andy Staples. He ranked Lagway number 1. Sellers from South Carolina 2, Klubnik from Clemson 3, Arch Manning 4, Nussmeier 5, John Mateer 6. So that means 4 out of the 6 quarterbacks are from the SEC, or excuse me, 5 out of the 6 quarterbacks are from the SEC. What are your thoughts on this? Is Arch Manning appropriately ranked?
Oh, yeah. I think I like him at 4. I like him at 4. I mean, these are some talented guys here. I mean, Drew Aller at 7, Carson Beck at 10 is really interesting. Like, what kind of year is he going to produce over at Miami? How are they going to look? I mean, you go from I'm blanking on his name, the number 1 pick, Cam Ward. You go from Cam Ward to Carson Beck, like that. That's going to change a lot. But let's just talk about the top 5 real quick. It's a little rich for me to have Lagway 1. If I'm going out of the guys out of the top 4 or 5, I would either have Nussmeier 1, but I would probably go with Klubnik number 1. Just the way he finished the season. I mean, he balled out against us. Really, maybe should have won if we made a few more mistakes. He's just so dynamic with the football, and they have really good receivers that are going to push and push and push. I like Sellers. He's a bit too high for me. I need more consistency from Sellers. He needs to be healthy. I like Lagway too. Lagway, again, is he number 1? So I got some holes in this. I think Klubnik should be higher. Arch is fine at 4. I think Nussmeier should be a little higher. I know people don't love Drew Aller, but I think part of that is just because the offense they run. I think he could easily be in the top 5 conversation. And then John Mateer, I don't know a ton about him. Sellers, I'm shocked he has number 2, to be honest. I think he's in the top 6, no doubt about it. But 2, with the up and downs and the injuries is a little much for me. And then Lagway at 1, same thing. You just got to stay healthy. What do you
I
think?
think number one should be Kate Klubnik because Clemson had an
Yes.
awesome year. Yes, they didn't really play that great of a schedule, but he was amazing. He was
Right.
scoring touchdowns both to the air and on the run. I almost watched every Clemson game last year. I got a very good feel of how Klubnik was even before we played him in the playoffs. I was impressed with that kid. I've been following him since high school, and I think he's going to be a stud in his senior year. I think Drew Aller should be number two. We've talked about this. Me and Nick have watched a couple of Drew Aller games last year, and we look at each other and we're like, he's good, but can he go to that other level? And yes, maybe he was getting hampered by the offense. Well, hopefully, what's the coach's name? Franklin really
Franklin, yeah.
opens up the offense for Drew Aller. So he'll be number two. I rank Lagway number three, even though I'm concerned.
Yep. I'm fine with
He's
that.
been out all spring practice so far. They said he's going to be healthy by the summer, but I don't know. It's a shoulder injury, so those can go either way.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
I think Arch Manning should be ahead of Nussmeier, even though Nussmeier's older. He did not have that great of a year at LSU. So I think only changes I would make is Drew Aller should be higher. Lagway should also not be number one, but in the top three. Lenore Sellers, I really like. Let's just see if he can continue to establish that consistency as a passer. Even though he was a reason South Carolina won a lot of games, they should have beat LSU. They should have beat Alabama, but he was the reason that they were in those games. I'm a big Lenore Sellers fan. Sam Levitt, I want to see if when teams scheme against him, can he throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game and not rely on both scatables. That's going to be a big thing with Levitt. But I wanted to ask you also, who would you rank just about the SEC? Who is the number one quarterback in the SEC?
Wow. Wow, that is really tough. I'm gonna say it's Arch Manning. Which is kind of it's tough because you got the Nussmeier kid who is obviously he's played the most, right? He's been in the longest. He has great arm talent and he can really do it all in terms of his arm and power. But it's been inconsistent. Like he had so many opportunities last year, and LSU itself just fell flat. You have Lagway, who is very athletic. He's dynamic, but again, he's always beat up. So I might go. Okay, let me say this: if you go right now today, game is tomorrow. Who's the starting quarterback? I'm going Nussmeier, Manning, Lagway.
Oh,
1, 2, 3.
nice.
If we go by the end of this season, I'm going Manning, Lagway,
Okay.
Nussmeier.
No, that's definitely fair.
So I think Lagway and Manning will have some growing pains and growth, and they will grow into the 1 and 2 guys in the SEC. And Nussmeier will still be up and down, and he'll finish third.
Okay, I agree with that. So coming into the season, I would before we even start the season, I would rank Lagway 1, Arch 2, Lenore Sellers 3. And then Nussmeier 4. Nussmeier, yes, he's been in college the longest, but last year was his first year starting as a fourth year junior. And
true.
The team around him wasn't the best. Brian Kelly could have helped supported him a little better, but at times you go scratching your head. He made questionable decisions with the football, and he's a gunslinger. So, but I think we agree when the season's over, Arch Manning is going to be 1, Lagway 2, I think Nussmeier 3, and Sellers 4. But a quarterback that's underrated in the SEC. I hate to do this, Longhorns fans, but John Mateer from Oklahoma. He came from Washington State. He's a great player. He can run. He can throw. It's just that who's Oklahoma going to put around him? They lost so many wide receivers and running backs and protection. How great of a supporting cast is he going to have? But I think John Mateer can be a very underrated player. Well, now that we talked about quarterbacks, now they also rank the top 10 best 2025 non-conference games. So number 1 is LSU at Clemson. Number 2 is Texas at Ohio State. So first question I want to ask you, Should Texas at Ohio State be number one?
Oh, we should be number one in everything. Actually, I try not to be biased on here as much as possible. We try to give very factual information, but I do think it's number one only because the way they beat us last year, and it was a tug of war, but they ended up winning by 2 touchdowns, and they win the national championship game. It's Arch's first start. It's in Columbus, so headlines wise, Ohio State is up here, Texas is right under them, trying to win. I think it is. I think it is number one, only because LSU Clemson, that's awesome. They're both the Tigers, Battle of the Tigers, same weekend, same day.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
What is LSU? That's the question for me. If LSU was like a top 10 team last year, I'd be like, yep, that can be number one. But Clemson, to me, seems they're back on the rise. LSU, are they flatlining? Are they declining? Like, what are they? We don't even know. I think Texas, Ohio State is going to be awesome. It's going to be cinema. But sometimes these games that have nothing to do with Texas are more fun to watch because you're not as stressed out. You can just enjoy and sit back and watch, for example, Illinois and Duke duel it out, and you don't really care because it doesn't really affect you. But there's so many games that you could just get so excited for.
Definitely. And LSU, they're going to have the most pressure on them because they want to start the season out strong. The last couple of years, Nick, they've started the first game with an L. Well, Death Valley, Clemson Death Valley is a very tough place to play, puts a lot of pressure on Nussmeier, but that's going to be an epic battle. Nussmeier against Klubnik. And that's going to be awesome. Yeah. But Ohio State, Arch Manning, and then Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith. They're breaking in a new quarterback. I have to rate Texas, Ohio State number one because both teams made the semifinals in the playoffs, and it was a one-possession game. Texas could have easily won that game, but you have to give credit. Ohio State was a better team that day, and they won the national championship. So now I wanted to ask you, so besides the top 2 games, what is a game from 3 to 10 that you're most looking forward to watching in the non-conference?
There's a few that really jump out that really, really get me excited. Like, for one, Alabama and Florida State. Alabama breaking in a new quarterback, obviously, because Jalen Milroe is going to the NFL. Florida State breaking in a new quarterback. Where is Florida State? What are they? Talking about pressure. The year before, they just finished on the playoff. We get in, Bama gets in, ends up being a great playoff. What is Bama? Is Bama back on the rise? Is it Ty Simpson starting at quarterback? That's the opening weekend. So that's one for me. That's just big programs, opening weekend. Sounds awesome. That's one. The second one, Clemson and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Big rivalry. Big rivalry. This one's in Columbia. This one is the battle of the quarterbacks. Is Carolina going to beat Clemson 2 years in a row? Remember, the thing with last year is that Clemson lost to South Carolina and Clemson still got in because they won the ACC. So do they get their get back? Do they get their revenge? And then the last one I'll bring up that's just interesting to me is Notre Dame and Miami. Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman has been phenomenal. I love Marcus Freeman. If Sark wasn't our coach or whatever, he didn't exist, I would love Marcus Freeman to be our coach. I think he's just such a young guy. He gets guys bought in. Where is Notre Dame? Do they fall off a little bit? No Riley Leonard. They're breaking in a new quarterback, right? And then you have Miami. No Cam Ward. Carson Beck. This is the same weekend. This is going to be a hell of a weekend. Where are they? And are they back to being ACC? Well, they didn't win the ACC, but can they get to the ACC championship game? Can they, win 10 games? Can they win 9 games? So there's a lot. I guess for the ones that I'm picking is like, what do we know about you? Alabama, Florida State. What do we know? Like, how far off is Notre Dame going to fall off, if any? And Clemson, South Carolina, that game is the most underrated rivalry game, I think.
That's good. Every time they play, they've been.
I think it's always good.
I've watched the last 3 years. highly competitive matchups, and they do not like each other at all. You would at
No,
all,
at
and
all.
both environments are raucous. Like South Carolina Stadium, they built a home field advantage. Clemson Stadium, we
Yes.
know, and they're both great teams. So the two heavyweights in South Carolina are now fighting it out. And the good thing about it is that's
Yes.
rivalry weekend. So that game is in November. That's not even at the beginning of the year. So
Yes.
this year,
Right.
that game is going to have playoff implications and maybe even Heisman implications or even NFL draft pecking order implications. So that, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
probably.
all
All
of
of
the
that.
above. So the great choice on that. But my two games I want to talk about are 3 and 4. Florida Gators at the Miami Hurricanes. Florida Gators lost to the Miami in Florida, but now Billy Napier, he got off the hot seat. They need to win this year because they cannot win 6 or 7 games again. Otherwise, Billy Napier is going to be right back on the hot seat. Is how healthy is DJ Lagway for that game? They said he should be ready for the season, but will it be 100% DJ Lagway, or is he still going to have some growing pains?
Right.
Because Nick, he missed the entire spring, and it's not like he's a fourth-year quarterback. Last year, he was only a true freshman, so we know how important those springs are when you're a younger player. So is that going to stunt DJ Lagway's development a little bit? And Carson Beck, I think we're going to see a motivated Carson Beck this year because he felt like he got unfairly blamed by the Georgia fans who me and Nick know a lot of Georgia fans being in Atlanta. He feels
Right.
like he got unfairly blamed. So let's see how he could if he balls out this year at Miami. But who are they going to put around Carson Beck? The fourth,
Right.
I'm also the next game I'm going to talk about is Michigan at Oklahoma. Michigan has the new wonder boy, Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country, just like Quinn Ewers was. How ready is he going to be? What a game, Nick, to start your true freshman season. Having to play at Oklahoma. Michigan lost a lot. They lost Loveland. They lost Will Johnson. They lost Mason Graham. So how much can Michigan lean on the running game? And if they don't lean on the running game, is it going to be more of an air attack that Michigan tries to beat people with? And then also Oklahoma, Brett Venables is in the hot seat. He cannot win 6 or 7 games. He needs to win 8 or 9 games this year. This would be a good stepping stone for Brett Venables. And how is John Mateer, the quarterback that transferred from Washington State, going to translate to Oklahoma? Well, now, so our last topic of the day is some team news. Let's talk about some team news. So, Texas had a spring scrimmage this past Saturday, and they said the defense really got after the offense. Arch Manning threw a couple picks. Again, that's going to happen. But Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill were unblockable, and also our secondary really, really good, and our defense is ahead of the offense right now. So, I wanted to ask you, Nick, reading the practice reports, are you concerned?
No, I'm not. I mean, this is what I mean. This is what's to be expected. I think this is going to happen. It's a young wide receiving core. The guys are breaking in. I mean, Arch Manning is still finding his way. You want him to actually make mistakes right now, right? You don't want him to make mistakes in week 6 when you're on the road in the fourth quarter, down 6, and you need to score. This is when he needs to mess up. This is when he needs to learn how to make mistakes. This is when you need to fumble the ball and learn how to do all those things. So no, I'm not concerned at all. If anything, it's a credit to the defense. We lost a lot on defense. The NFL draft is coming up next week, I think, and there's going to be a lot of Texas names being called. Offensively, a lot, but a lot of them on defense too. So I think if anything, it's a good sign for the defense. I'm not reading too much into this either way. Um, Offensive guys are still learning how to function together. Some of those defensive guys have been there for a couple of years and they probably already know what's coming. They're smart. You have Taft, I know, probably being a pain back there. So, no, I'm not reading into any of this at all. You want mistakes now. You don't want them in December.
Definitely. And remember, we have a young offensive line. I know we had DJ Campbell coming back, but we're going to be breaking.
That's about
That's
it.
it. We're going to be breaking in 4 new starters. Well, Cole Hudson, the starting center, he played the guard position his true freshman
Right.
year, and he rotated, but he's never played center before, and he's going to be your new starting center. So they're still working out protections and everything. And our wide receivers, they said they struggled to get off of, because the defense was told get on these guys, and make life as miserable as possible. It's a good learning experience for them. But I'm most excited about the secondary. Our secondary is going to be nasty. Ward Roberson, Cade Phillips, the true freshman, Michael Taft, Jelani McDonald, our corners, Kobe Black, who's a young corner, but he's been amazing. Malik Muhammad. They said the biggest winner so far in the spring has been our secondary. It's going to be a no-fly zone over Austin, Texas, and DKR. But I wanted to ask you this final question, and I'm going to ask you to project a little bit. Will our defense this year be better than last year with a Colin Simmons in this year 2 and Anthony Hill in year 3?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm gonna say no, just because of how good the defense was last year. I mean, there were so many game-saving plays that were made that won us games practically, which made you want to pull your hair out because it's like, man, we should be up by 21 points right now. Why are we only up by 3? Arizona State, great example. Ohio State, they kept us in it as long as they could, but we just lost so many key guys where I think individually guys could be better. Like even Taft could have a better year, even though he had a great year last year. Colin Simmons could have better years individually, but as units, I don't think so. If a unit was going to be better, maybe it's the secondary.
Yep.
But man, that defense was maybe the best in football. I mean, it was so good. So I don't know if it's number one. I do think it doesn't fall off as far as some people might think, like, oh God, it's going to be horrible. No, I think it's still going to be really, really good. I just don't think it's going to be number one in the country. Maybe we're thinking top 5 in the country, top 7 in the country, which can still win you a national championship. So yes, I think some guys will be even better from last year, but overall, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Longhorns fans are getting very excited though because all the positions are going to be really good. Just the only question mark is defensive tackles because we don't have a Sweat, we don't have a Murphy. Even last year, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broden. If we can have that tandem this year in the defensive tackle, like that's going to be amazing. But most of our pressure, in my opinion, is going to be generated by our edge players: Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, Colton Bosick, those type of players. But we'll see what's going to happen. But their defense is definitely going to be one of the better position groups to watch for this team. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. Be sure to follow us on our social media channel. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The next episode, we're going to focus a little bit more heavily on the draft because it's only 9 days away as we are recording April 15th. The draft is April 24th. We're going to go over the mock drafts and where we think the projected Longhorns are going to be drafted and how many Longhorns will be drafted. But until then, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Hook 'em.